I remember very clearly I had to call my dad in my apartment, and I was very scared, of course. One, mostly because I knew that they were gonna be disappointed, right? To say all that money you spent on college, I kinda changed my mind. I'm not gonna do what I went and studied for,
Mm,
and it's just a scary path to take. But I knew that that was the only thing I could do. It would
wow.
be my way to happiness if I do it correctly.
Welcome to The O Word, a podcast for overachievers by overachievers. And I'm your host, Stephanie Lynn. And if you've ever been told you care too much, work too hard, or set the bar just a little too high, you are in the right place because here we are reclaiming the word overachiever, not as something that burns you out, but something that you can channel into purpose, creativity, and a life that feels fulfilling. I'm joined by Kathy Fang, award-winning chef, restaurateur, television personality, and entrepreneur. She grew up inside one of San Francisco's most iconic restaurants, founded by her parents. You may also recognize her from television, including Chopped and Chef Dynasty, House of Fang. Really, I see Kathy's story as one about stepping into a legacy while also building something that's distinctly her own. Kathy, I'm so glad to have you here with us.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me. I feel very honored to be one of your guests today.
I would love to start a bit from the very beginning. You wrote about this so beautifully in your latest book, House of Nanking, which you wrote with your father. I'd love for our listeners to get a sense of how those memories formed you into who you are today.
Yeah, I feel my upbringing inside of House of Nanking, the restaurant that I grew up in, that my parents, Peter and Lily, opened, was a very lively and rambunctious kind of upbringing, right? The restaurant is known to be one of the most crowded, loudest, and sort of hectic restaurant space. And so you have to imagine that me as a 7-year-old child having to just carve a little space for myself in there where you really couldn't just stand and be idle. So I
Mhm.
was always just kind of thrown into the mix to help out in some way, whether it's cleaning dishes and serving people drinks or going out to the line and making sure people are, not leaving the line. My dad was always very tense about customers leaving because the line was too long.
Right.
And so I felt like from the get-go as a kid, there are all these different duties and responsibilities that I kind of naturally had to take on. And so that was all I thought at the time very fun for me, but also ingrained in me this sense of work ethic, right? Like
Mhm.
you never just stand idle. If things are happening, whether it's in the restaurant and anywhere else, even outside of that, you always jump in to see if you can help with something, make use of yourself. That was a very big part of my childhood.
Growing up in that space where you're surrounded by really driven entrepreneurial people, did you feel any pressure from that at all?
I always felt pressure, but the pressure wasn't necessarily because of the restaurant itself. I think it was because of our culture, right? Like my parents are very traditional Chinese, and I grew up in that immigrant household between like all my aunts and relatives and my grandmother. And we understand as children that they all came here to find better opportunity for themselves, but more importantly for us, for the younger generation. They would always say, we laid the foundation, we're working hard to make money so that you can go and get a proper education. So that
Mhm.
was the type of pressure that
Mhm.
I felt that I
Mhm.
have to do better than what
Mhm.
they've done. And my parents are very accomplished. Like, that's going to be very hard to achieve. And then they also had their own set of standards where they didn't want me to be in the restaurant industry. They didn't think that was a prestigious job. They wanted me to go be a doctor, a lawyer.
Very typical
Yeah.
storyline with children of immigrant parents. So it's interesting because you did end up going to USC, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And you studied, was it business?
I did. I'm a very obedient child. I followed exactly what my parents told me to do. First, it was to try go be a doctor. And then I realized I'm deathly afraid of needles and just hospitals kind of scare me. That was just probably not the right direction. I made a big pivot when I went to college and said, I'm going to switch my major and go study business. And I worked at Merrill Lynch for a bit doing wealth management. I also did operations with Neutrogena, which is a Johnson and Johnson company. I just felt very uninspired. I was very unhappy. I didn't think that this was going to be my future because if it was, it felt really sad to me.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
one thing that I always loved was honestly the energy at the restaurant. And I love food. I love cooking. I love entertaining. That probably made up 80% of my life. Even when I was in LA working at these corporate jobs, my mind was always on food. So I
Mhm.
said, why am I not working in food if that's the
Yeah.
one thing that I love?
Was there an exact turning point when you realized that, "Hey, finance, business, this is not for me. I need to take a step away from this."
Yeah, I had an epiphany. I had kind of an aha moment. When I was at Neutrogena, they had this thing called a goodie bag that they would give to people at the end of every month. It was a bag of defective products that they couldn't sell. Now, they're not products that would be harmful. They're defective in the sense that the packaging is a little off or the pump doesn't pump as well. The label is kind of like slightly off, right? So these products get clumped. There's so much of it clumped into these bags and they give it to all the employees. I just thought one day that as I was waiting for this bag, that this is really depressing. I went to SC. My parents worked so hard for me to go find that perfect job. And here I am waiting for a bag of defective products that I don't even use myself. I would actually save them, bring it back to San Francisco and give it to my aunts and my uncles, right? To the restaurant people. And so to me, that I was like, this cannot be the end of
Right.
the end all be all kind of thing. So that was my epiphany. Then I decided I'm going to tell my dad I'm going to move back to San Francisco. I am going
Mm.
to come work at the restaurant.
Was it tough having to break that news to your dad? And I ask this because I imagine there's a lot of people who worked really hard towards something that they feel that their parents wanted for them, but they're just not feeling the passion for whatever industry it is. I'm curious to know what your parents' reaction was to that and how you delivered that news.
I remember very clearly I had to call my dad in my apartment, and I was very scared, of course. One, mostly because I knew that they were gonna be disappointed, right? To say all that money you spent on college, I kinda changed my mind. I'm not gonna do what I went and studied for.
Mhm.
And, I also was very scared in that I I knew that that was what I was supposed to do, but at the same time, I had no plans, right?
Mhm.
That's very scary because my dad's always been someone who says you always should have a plan, right?
Mhm.
Like, don't
Mhm.
just go into something without a plan. So I was kind of doing everything that I felt would be a big disappointment for my parents.
Mm.
And it's just a scary path to take. But I knew that that was the only thing I could do. It would
Wow.
be my way to happiness if I do it correctly. And, the first reaction my dad said was, "Did you get fired?"
Mm.
Because he didn't think that I decided to quit. He's like, "Something major must have happened. She must have gotten fired or something," right? And I was like,
Uh,
"No, I didn't get fired. I really just don't wanna do this."
I willingly want to walk away from this salaried,
Yeah,
coveted job.
and I don't know what I'm gonna go do, but I know it's gonna be with food, right?
Mhm.
You can imagine as a parent that that is scary as well. They want is success for their kids.
Did you just start jumping right into day-to-day operations at the restaurant? How did that transition work so that, that your parents were able to gain some reassurance?
Yeah. So I got very lucky in that a part of my dad's mind, he he was happy, right? One, I'm coming home. I was in LA at the time. So that part was very positive for him. I moved back home, lived with them. Number two, my dad always wondered what was going to happen to the restaurant, right? If
Mhm.
I didn't take over, he wouldn't give it to anybody else. So in their mind, there was no succession plan. It was basically once they're done and they can't work anymore, the restaurant would close. It would be an end to something amazing that they have created. So that part was always
Mhm.
sad for him. So there was a little hope in the back of his mind that, okay, well, if she's back and she ends up being really good at this and really wants to do this, then House of Dain can continue on. And that's not that bad of a thing either. So I decided to work at the restaurant every single day, side by side with my parents for a full year and just show them that this was something that I really wanted to do. Restaurant life is hard. If I were wishy-washy about it, maybe showed up to work some days but didn't come on other days, then he would know she's not serious about it. Like, and how is she going to handle herself in the restaurant? Is she going to interject herself as a boss, take care of things, take initiative, or is she just going to work like an employee? I
Mhm.
knew my dad was gonna be watching me. So I would take it upon myself to do the things that he would do, right? Go create dishes and recipes, go cook in the kitchen. I followed his footsteps. I'm not here to help out. I'm here to learn and be like you.
I'm curious to get your advice for folks who, they have chosen to uh, go after their passion, right? But they are still feeling that pressure from their parents or their relatives, like, oh, you should be doing something else that's a little more stable. What is your advice to that person that might be listening right now?
My advice is that if you are someone who actually have found something that you feel passionate about and you're contemplating it, then you're already miles ahead from most other people. Because I think one of the sadder things that I hear quite often is when people get lost and they don't know what they're passionate about because they've devoted so much time down one path that they've never spent the time to even explore other options, right? And at that point, then it becomes really difficult to go find or pivot into something else. And so, if you have already that kind of inkling or you feel that edge of, well, there is something I really love, and I'm just kind of scared to go pursue it, then you absolutely need to pursue it because consider yourself lucky to even have that because a lot of people don't. So take advantage of that and go for it because from my experience, the people who go after the things that they really care about, that they really love, I mean, almost 100% of the time, they do well. They do well in it, and it's not just well in the sense of traditional success. I think it's well in the sense of, like, how do you feel? Like, you're gonna be a happier person. You'll be a better person, not only as, like, a career person, but, like, in family situations, as a partner, a wife or a husband, as a mom, right? If you are doing the things that you love, then you're a more complete person too. So, I think you can't think of it just in terms of how we used to think of it, as in success is tied to maybe how much money you make or how much power you have, or a prestigious title. I think now people understand that happiness in a person is made up of more than just that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of overachievers sometimes fall into the trap of external validation. How can someone step away from that but still achieve that feeling of I'm successful? I've achieved greatly.
I know a lot of people who struggle with that. I know a lot of people in tech, and I think tech is a highly competitive space, right? You've got founders who've, had successful exits who are highly depressed because they can't come up with a third one, right? Or a fourth
Yeah.
one, which is crazy. The level of competition and expectation and recognition is particularly high, I think, in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, because I think I'm around that so much that I've become very self-aware of how I need to be, right? Because I could easily also feel that way. The food space is also very competitive, right? Like, I could argue to say, oh, I've done well, but I've never gotten a Michelin star, or I've never gotten a James Beard, and that I could be depressed around that too, right? But I don't do any of those things. I don't do the things that I do for that. It
Mhm.
just so happens that I've gotten recognition because of, uh, my food, maybe because of the way that I tell my story and have expanded my family's branding. I love sharing culture. I love just sharing everything about what my parents have created in the community that I come from. And I think naturally, all those things have helped me garner accolades. And that's just kind of a nice byproduct. And then I move on. I'm not thinking, okay, now like, what else do I need to try to like get? I really want to go shoot for that Michelin. Like, I don't really care about that. Like, I just care about maintaining success with the businesses that we have, continue to grow, continue to do things that I love doing. That helps
Right.
with the balance.
Yeah, because it sounds like you're linking your joy to your passion for food, your passion for running a business, your passion for spending time with your family.
I'm very happy with what we have. I don't need to be this major restaurateur with 5 restaurants, and, like, I don't think I'd be that happy, you know?
Like you have a clear idea of what being happy means to you.
For a long while, it was trying to get my own television show on the Food Network, right? At the time, it was to teach people how to cook Chinese food, but it turns out people don't want that. They wanted a reality show about our family and our restaurant. But I still
Okay.
accomplished the one thing,
Right.
which was to put our culture and our food on food TV. And that journey alone was almost 10 years. Right. So I worked about 10 years trying to get that out there through creating food blogs, writing articles, trying to appear on television, go compete. And then it came shooting this show. Then it was, doing a lot of speaking events. It's just all these things were constantly happening, appearances. So that was keeping me very busy. Then the next thing was trying to accomplish this cookbook, right? And so these things all take about 2 to 3 years of time. Life just kind of goes like that. Now I'm like, oh, people say, what's next? What's next? And I'm like, I haven't had like a moment to actually even think about that because I feel like I've gotten the things a lot of things floating.
Yeah.
I love creative things.
I'm curious to get your take on what it was like navigating the restaurant and culinary world, because it can be so competitive.
I think one of my earlier challenges, there were two of them that I felt like I had to deal with from the get-go of opening Fang Restaurant. Uh, the first one was the fact that my dad is a very prominent figure from House of Nanking, right? Everybody knows my dad and, thinks very highly of him. And so when we opened Fang, it's a father-daughter venture, but nobody knew that he had a daughter who can cook. And so the first couple of months of running the restaurant, me working and cooking and doing all that stuff, people kept saying, "Oh my God, congratulate your dad. It's so sweet that you were helping him out." Um, and I was like, "No, I'm the chef. Like, I made that dish. I'm cooking back
Yeah.
there." And they're like, "What? No." People would always just say things that were actually kind of very rude, right? They're like, "No, you're too young," or I don't trust the chef that's so skinny. You're too pretty." And it really, really like not only bothered me, but it really dug at me. It made me feel um, just very insignificant, like looked down upon. Or people would say, "Oh, this must be nice to ride on your dad's coattails for all this stuff." Like it's just sort of like, "Oh, she must not have made it in school to like now come and work for her dad." And
Wow.
that was the first thing that I had to deal with, which was why it was very important for me to carve out my own branding, right? Like, yes, my job was to help grow House of Nanking and keep it relevant and even more popular than it was even before. But at the same time, I had to carve my own voice and my own brand outside of my dad because even my dad himself, like as a business, is very domineering. My dad was always like, "Oh, we are business partners, but it's always my way," right? Like, and I'm like, "Well, we are like, I know you're my dad, but like we are business partners. So my ideas should have the same amount of like clout versus yours." And so it took me having to push those boundaries constantly in the beginning
Yeah.
to like make my stake in this business.
Wow.
And yeah, I was able to to utilize media as a platform for me to share my voice and my brand and what I can do.
I was curious to know if there ever was a point where you felt like you had to figure out how to almost step outside of his shadow, but you just described it right
Yeah,
there.
and then people will compare, right? Imagine if, like, Martin Yan had a son who came out and was like, "Oh, I'm a chef too." Like, people are gonna compare, right?
Mhm.
Is the son as good as the dad, right? Is this and a lot of times, those kinda dynamics, I feel like the children kinda crumble under it because the star power is so big here. That's gonna be very hard to live up to that hype, um, from other people, right? Because it's based on the customers, it's based on all these people who've been eating his food for the last 20, 30 years. How are you gonna be able to match that, right? There's a lot
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
that kind of pressure.
Wow. How did you navigate that?
Well, I mean, I am a very competitive person and deep down inside myself as well.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, I also kind of grew up with a little bit of, like, a chip on my shoulder as a kid. Um, Growing up very Asian, I was not very popular as a kid. I got made fun of a lot of the times, and I always felt like one day I'm gonna like show you, like I can be
Mhm.
better than this. So I think I've always had that inside of me, and I also always wanted to prove to my dad that I can like be as good as my dad and that he can be proud of what I can do. Um, and really, it was just to tell all those people who were like, "Oh, you can't cook," that I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I can cook. You watch me."
And you showed them.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Uh, gosh, I would probably have loved for, like, the younger Kathy to have had a little bit more confidence growing up, because when I look at, or when I reflect on the earlier years, I was a very, very different person, very shy, very unsure of myself, and it's not because my parents are so strict, but it's just, like, you're always in this high intensity environment that, like, you're just like, "Oh, I just wanna make things easy." I wish I could have sort of been an advisor at that time to be like, "It's okay. You don't need to be, like, so timid and scared. You can, like, actually, um, take some confidence in yourself and go do the things that you wanna go do." There were a lot of,
Mhm.
like, hobbies I wanted to take that I never ended up taking because I was, like, scared to ask for it, and would it be too
Mm.
expensive? So I didn't get to explore as much stuff, I feel like, when I was younger, but a lot of that changed over time. I think I always had, like, the Kathy that I am now
Yeah.
inside of me. It just didn't come out until a lot later.
Mhm. What coaxed it out of you?
You know what's interesting is I think part of it started when I went to, an all-girls school. So my dad transferred me to an all-girls school, in 6th grade because my dad was worried about boys, and he's not home,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, "I am deathly scared that she's gonna go, fall in
Run
love with some
away.
guy." Yeah, run away, make some mistake. So he said, "We're gonna send you to all-girls school. There'll be no boys. I won't have to worry about a thing." And at the time, I was like, "Oh, this is terrible. This sucks." But, now we talk a lot about, like, women empowerment, right? Like, teaching women to, speak for themselves, to fight, to dream. Um, Back then, there was not a lot of that type of messaging, right? The school, however, being an all-girls school, actually did talk about those themes, which is completely new to me. Like, these were not values that were spoken about at home. In fact, culturally for us, it was actually all about being behind the scenes, right? As a Chinese female,
Mhm.
you always listen to your elders, you don't speak up, you don't ask for promotions, you don't ask for anything. If
Mhm.
anything you feel you deserve should come to you from hard work, not from asking.
Mhm.
Right. And so
Mhm.
that creates that kind of like mindset. If you're already shy and timid and then you are taught to like never speak up, you can never grow to become that powerful woman, to
Mhm.
ask and to demand for things. But
Yeah.
that setting, they were always talking about that, always talking about, women can accomplish things. So I was kind of getting this form of education without even thinking about it. And we did a lot of public speaking at that time. I think that's where that all started for me to feel comfortable, starting to feel comfortable with speaking. Do people even want to hear what I have to say? Or are people
Mm,
making fun of me if I say something? How are
mm,
they going to look at me because I look different?
mm.
Those things slowly start to go away.
A lot of overachievers, they start out trying to prove themselves, but eventually success starts to mean something different and starts to look different in our minds. So, was there a moment when your definition of success changed?
Yeah, I would say that, for probably the first, uh, 10 years of doing the restaurant, that was purely based on trying to prove myself to not only my dad, to myself, and to other people, right? But after that, getting married and then eventually having kids, I think that is when things shifted because like I said, I am a competitive person, not necessarily competitive with other people, but with myself, right? Like I always want to see like, oh, what else can I do? If I've done this, can I do something else? And I don't like to sit still, but having kids really reeled me in because now the definition of success has shifted. It's about
Mhm.
like creating success in our family through how can we raise our kids better? How can we be more present in our kids' lives? How can I be a better daughter? How can I assist and help my parents as they age? Those are all forms of success for me.
Can you talk about to the value of taking breaks, rest? Do you take breaks and
I do.
and rest?
I do.
Tell us a bit about that.
I think it's very important to take breaks. And if you're able to accomplish that, then I don't think um, you'll you'll get these crazy sort of like breakdowns, right? I've done this for what, let's just say 20, 21 years. I work out 5 days a week in the morning. It's 1 hour that I give myself, which
What
is
time do you
actually,
get up?
I get up at 6:30. I take the
Okay.
kids to school, pack up everything. And then when I drop them off, I come home, I give myself a 1 hour. So sometimes it's 7:30, sometimes it's 8:30, but it's non-negotiable.
Mhm.
Nothing can take the place of it unless something urgent comes up. And if you think about it, it's very little out of the entire day to give to yourself, right? To
Yeah.
take care of your body, that makes everything else possible. I'm a happier person when I can do that. And then I love traveling. Traveling is a big part of creativity. It's huge for me when it comes to food, like creating new dishes. I need exposure. I need to experience other cultures and food. So I always plan out trips. That makes me feel balanced out so that all the hard work is fine because I get to treat
Mm.
myself later.
It's important to take care of our bodies, to make
Yes.
time for family, and it is totally okay and acceptable to take a few days off and seek inspiration and creative
Absolutely.
space. Yeah.
Take a break. If you can't take that amount of break, even a walk, right? Like I do a lot of my errands walking and I like walking by myself. It's like a little bit of time where you can breathe, where you can think. Maybe it's about work, maybe it's about something else. But I do that quite often throughout the day. And then another thing that I really enjoy, like people have to find what they enjoy. I like being around other people outside of the restaurant, right? So grab a drink with a girlfriend, go try a new restaurant. Even if it's something really quick and random, go grab a coffee. It's just take yourself out of it.
For young chefs, especially women or Asian Americans who want to break into the culinary world, what advice would you give to them?
Probably tell them to just focus on what they love about the food industry and why they're doing it in the first place. Um, l- like we were talking about earlier, I think food space is highly competitive, right? And for a lot of chefs, they go into it chasing after a star, right? Chasing after for accolades and recognition. And I wouldn't go into this business with that in sight first because Not everybody. A lot of successful restaurants that have been around a long time don't have that type of recognition. So if you don't accomplish it, then I think it's going to be a pretty tough journey, right? But if you go into it because you just love cooking and you want to focus on creating dishes that you love that you can share with other people, they're going to be happy and they're going to be successful, right? And the success definition needs to be something that they really, really have to reflect upon.
When you hear the word overachiever today, what does it mean to you now?
It's funny. I really like this name for your podcast because you know, growing up, that's like all these mixed feelings around this word, right? Because this word can have bad connotations where it's kind of like, oh, she's the overachiever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it's also this word that if you are one, it can be a very prestigious label. Now, as like a 44-year-old older, I actually embrace it. I like it. I talk to my daughter about always like, you got to be better. You got to be better, right?
Yeah. And of course, remembering a little bit of balance and taking some breaks along the way, too.
Right. Well, you can't be an overachiever if you don't like take care of yourself because then you get burnt out and then you can't go achieve anymore. So
Yes,
it's
yes,
like climbing a
100%.
mountain, right? Like if you're going to climb Mount Everest, you can't just do it in one shot. You got to take breaks.
Right. Rome wasn't built in a day.
No.
All right, Kathy, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you, the listener, you see yourself or a friend in this conversation, please bookmark this episode or share it with someone you love. Make sure you follow Kathy on social media as well. She's got some incredible stories there. And remember, overachievers, own your ambition. It isn't something to shrink, it is something to celebrate and shape. And I'll see you next time on the O Word.
Thank you.
The end.
Yay.